My mom secretly read my therapy notes and turned my family against me.
My name is Sarah, I'm 24, and if this ever ends up in a Reddit video, I just want people to understand that sometimes the person who breaks you the most is the one who claims they only want the best for you. I grew up in a very appearance-first family. On El Papel, we looked perfect. 2 parents still married. A nice house in a quiet neighborhood, my older brother Daniel, 27, who was always the golden child, and me, the sensitive one, the dramatic one, the one who cried for everything. My mom, Laura, has always been obsessed with control and image. She was the kind of mom who cleaned the house before the cleaning lady came, who made us dress up to go to the mall, in case we see someone we know, and who loved to say, "What will people think?" about literally everything. My dad is quieter, the peacekeeper, the don't start drama type who disappears behind his phone whenever things get tense. When I was a kid, I cried a lot, but not just for nothing. I was anxious, scared of conflict, scared of making mistakes, scared of my mom's voice when she was disappointed. She never hit us, but her words. Sometimes I wish she had just grounded me instead of calling me ungrateful, selfish, or too much. By the time I was 18, I had panic attacks, insomnia, constant stomach aches. My mom's explanation for everything was, "You're just sensitive. You always exaggerate." I believed her for a long time. I thought I was broken. When I started college, my anxiety got worse. I was away from home physically, but mentally I still heard her voice every time I made a decision. If I chose a class she didn't approve of, she'd say, "Why are you wasting money?" If I didn't answer her messages fast enough, "You're abandoning your family now that you're independent." I started having full-blown panic attacks in the bathroom between classes. One day I almost fainted during an exam. My best friend Maya practically dragged me to the campus counseling center. The therapist there, Dr. Lewis, was the first person in my life to say, "This isn't you being dramatic. This is anxiety, and it's real." For the first time, I felt heard. She suggested I start regular therapy, and because the campus sessions were limited, I eventually found a private therapist, Dr. Kim. I didn't tell my mom at first. I knew exactly what she would say. "Therapy is for crazy people. We didn't raise you that badly. Are you telling strangers our family's problems?" But my anxiety was eating me alive, so I kept it to myself. Dr. Kim encouraged me to keep a journal between sessions. She told me to write freely about my fears, my anger, my memories, the things I never said out loud, and I did. I wrote about how my mom once made me change clothes 5 times and told me, "If you go out like that, people will think I'm a bad mother." I wrote about how she used my brother as the standard. "Why can't you be more like Daniel?" I wrote about feeling like I had to perform to be loved. I wrote about how sometimes I wished I could just disappear so I wouldn't disappoint anyone again. My journal became the only place where I was honest. I wrote things like, "I love my mom, but sometimes I feel like she doesn't love me. She loves the version of me she can control." It was raw, messy, full of anger and pain I'd been swallowing for years. I kept that journal in my room at home in a drawer, hidden but not locked, because, in my head, no one in my own family would ever go digging through my private thoughts. Verdad? I was wrong. It happened last year, during winter break. I went back home from college to spend the holidays with my family. Things felt normal at first. Decorations everywhere, Christmas music, my mom going full Pinterest with the table set up. One afternoon, I had a therapy session with Dr. Kim over video call from my room. I closed the door, put on my headphones, and spoke quietly. We talked about boundaries, about how I was starting to see patterns of emotional manipulation at home, about how my anxiety got worse whenever I stayed with my parents. I said something like, "I know my mom doesn't think she's abusive, but the way she dismisses my feelings feels like gaslighting." After the session, I tucked my journal back into my drawer and went downstairs. My mom was weirdly quiet. Usually she bombarded me with questions. "What did you talk about? How long did it last? How much is this costing?" That day she just looked at me and said, "Done?" in this flat voice. I said yes. She went back to chopping vegetables. I felt a chill and didn't know why. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. thirsty. When I went to the kitchen, I passed by the living room and saw a light on. My mom was sitting there, in her robe with something in her hands. It took me a second to realize what it was. My journal. My stomach dropped. I froze. She hadn't noticed me yet. Her eyes were red, but not just from crying. They had that angry shine I knew too well. I watched her turn a page, read, clench her jaw. I must have made a noise because she suddenly looked up and saw me standing there. We locked eyes. Time stopped. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice shaking. She slammed the journal shut and said, "What is this, Sarah?" "My private journal," I answered. "That you're reading." She stood up, holding the journal like it was evidence in a trial. "Do you hate me that much?" she started. "Everything in here, everything you wrote. You make me look like a monster, like I tortured you, after everything I've done for you." I felt my heart pounding in my ears. "You had no right to read that," I said, my voice getting louder. "Those are my therapy notes. That's literally illegal for a therapist to share, and you broke into it," she scoffed. "Don't talk to me about what's illegal when you're writing lies about your own mother. Emotional abuse, manipulation. Are you out of your mind? I fed you, dressed you, paid for your school, and this is how you repay me? By telling some stranger and a notebook that I destroyed your life." I tried to explain that it wasn't about repaying her, that therapy was about processing my feelings, not writing a legal document against her, but she didn't want to listen. "You know what hurts the most?" she said, waving the journal in the air. "You wrote that sometimes you wished you didn't exist. Do you have any idea what that does to a mother? Do you want me to feel guilty for the rest of my life? Is that what you want?" I said. "No, I was in pain. I needed somewhere safe to say it." She snapped. "So, I'm not safe? Your own family isn't safe, but some therapist you're paying is?" That turned into a full-on screaming match at 2 a.m. My dad woke up, came downstairs, and instead of saying, "Why are you reading her journal?" he said, "Can you both calm down? The neighbors will hear." My mom shoved the journal into my chest and said, "You are sick. You are making things up in your head and believing them. I'm going to fix this before you ruin this family." I took the journal and ran back to my room, crying so hard I could barely see. I wish I could say it ended there. It didn't. The next day, the atmosphere in the house was strange. My mom didn't talk to me at all in the morning. My dad avoided eye contact. Daniel, my brother, came over that evening for dinner with his girlfriend, Anna. I thought maybe my mom had slept on it, cooled down. I was wrong. Right before we ate, my mom cleared her throat and said, "We need to talk about Sarah." My chest tightened. "Mom, no," I whispered, already knowing. "Don't do this." She ignored me. She looked at my dad, my brother, Anna, and said, "I found something last night. Her journal, her therapy journal, and I read what she really thinks about us." I felt the blood drain from my face. She started summarizing out loud, in front of everyone, the most personal things I had written. She says I emotionally abused her, that I gaslight her, that this house is toxic, that she wishes she didn't exist sometimes. She looked at me with this mix of hurt and rage. "Tell them I'm lying," she demanded. "Tell them you didn't write that." I was shaking. I said, "I did write it, but that doesn't mean you're allowed to read it or share it. Those are my private feelings. You invaded my privacy and now you're using it against me." My brother looked confused and uncomfortable. "Sarah, what's going on?" he asked. Before I could answer, my mom jumped in. "What's going on is that your sister is being brainwashed by some therapist into believing her childhood was some horror movie. She's rewriting history. Now she's calling us manipulative and abusive because we didn't let her do whatever she wanted." My dad finally chimed in with, "You're taking this too far, Sarah. Writing things like that. It's hurtful. We did our best." Daniel asked more gently, "Is this true? You really think Mom abused you?" In that moment, I had a choice. Minimize my pain to keep the peace, or be honest and let the fallout happen. I chose honesty. My voice was shaking, but I said, "Yes. I think some of the things that happened here were emotionally abusive. I'm not saying you starved me or locked me in a basement, but I grew up scared of making Mom angry. I grew up feeling like love depended on my performance. That messes you up. I'm trying to work through it. My mom burst into tears. Listen to her, she cried. Listen to how dramatic she sounds. I can't even discipline my own child without being abusive now. Everyone is a victim these days. Daniel looked annoyed now. You could have talked to us, he said. Instead, you ran to therapy and wrote some diary like we're villains. That's not fair, Sarah. Anna, bless her, was the only one who seemed to get it. She quietly said, her journal is private. Reading it and sharing it isn't okay. My mom shot her a look and said, you don't have kids, Anna. You don't understand. Then she turned back to me. I'm not going to be painted as some monster. This therapist of yours is putting ideas in your head. What exactly are you telling her? That we're horrible people? That we ruined you? You know what? I think we should all go to your next session and clear this up. I said, absolutely not. Therapy is confidential, and for me, not a family trial. That's when she delivered the line that broke something inside me. If you're not hiding anything, why are you so afraid of us being there? Maybe because deep down you know you're making all of this up. The weeks after that were hell. My mom started this quiet, subtle campaign against me within the family. She would call my aunts and say things like, please pray for Sarah, she's not well, she's saying horrible things about us in therapy, but in this saintly, suffering mother tone that made her sound like the victim. One of my aunts called me and said, sweetie, your mom told me you're having mental problems. You shouldn't be so ungrateful. They gave you everything. My grandma asked on the phone, why do you hate your mother so much? I realized my mom had taken my private pain and turned it into a story where she was the abused one, and I was the cruel daughter destroying the family reputation. At home, she would say things like, careful what you say. Sarah might write it in her little book and call it abuse. My dad, instead of standing up for me, just kept saying, can't you just stop going to therapy if it causes so many problems? Things were fine before. Daniel stopped talking to me as much. At one point he texted, I love you, but mom is a wreck because of this. Maybe tone it down with the abuse stuff. Not everything is trauma. I sent that screenshot to Dr. Kim and just cried in our next session. Dr. Kim told me, what your mother did, reading your journal, using it to discredit your feelings and turn the family against you. That is emotional abuse. You're not crazy. This is exactly why you needed a safe space. She suggested I consider moving out permanently and going low contact for my own mental health. So that's what I did. After winter break, I didn't just go back to college. I found a small room to rent with 2 roommates and decided I wasn't coming back to live at my parents' house again. When my mom realized this wasn't just a phase, she went ballistic. I got long texts about how I was destroying the family, how I was choosing a stranger therapist over my own mother, how no one will ever love you like I do, and you're throwing that away. She even sent me a picture of my empty room saying, this is what you wanted, right? An empty space where your family used to be. I felt guilty. Of course I did. That's the trap. You grow up conditioned to feel responsible for everyone's emotions but your own. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered the image of her at 2 a.m., reading my journal in secret, and the sound of her voice repeating my private thoughts to the whole family like ammunition. I kept going to therapy. I focused on school. I built a life outside of that house. I went low contact, answered only necessary messages, no long calls, no emotional confessions. My mom hates it. Sometimes she still writes long paragraphs about how I changed after therapy, how I used to be such a sweet girl before those ideas got into my head. The truth is, I didn't change. I just stopped pretending. I finally had words for what I felt, and she couldn't stand losing control of the narrative. Now, I'm 24, about to graduate, still in therapy and still healing. My relationship with my family is complicated. My dad has slowly started to understand, at least a little. Sometimes he texts me privately, saying, I'm proud of you. But he never says it in front of my mom. Daniel and I talk, but he doesn't fully get it. For him, mom was always the supportive, proud parent. He didn't live my version of her. My mom and I, well, let's just say she still sees herself as the victim. She claims she never meant to hurt me, that I misinterpreted everything, and that if you hadn't written those things, I never would have had to read them. To this day, she refuses to apologize for invading my privacy. In her mind, a mother has the right to know everything. In mine, I finally have the right to keep some parts of me safe from her. So that's my story. My mom secretly read my therapy journal, exposed my deepest thoughts to my family, and then used it to paint me as the unstable, ungrateful daughter who turned against her own blood. I didn't lose my mind. I lost the illusion that my mom would ever see me as a separate person and not just an extension of her. Now I want to ask you, whoever is listening, if you found out your parent had read your therapy notes and turned your family against you because of them, would you ever forgive them? Or is this the kind of betrayal you walk away from for good?